A tweet by US President Donald Trump has wiped off billions of dollars from global stock markets. And if that wasn't enough, it's also expected to raise tensions between the world's two largest economies.
For 10 months, China has been paying tariffs to the U.S. of 25% on $50 billion of high tech and 10% on $200 billion of other goods. These payments are partially responsible for our great economic results. The 10% will go up to 25% on Friday. $325 billion of additional goods sent to us by China remain untaxed, but will be shortly at a rate of 25%. The tariffs paid to the U.S. have had little impact on product cost, mostly borne by China. The trade deal with China continues, but too slowly as they attempt to renegotiate. No.
Hours before Chinese officials were due in Washington for another round of trade talks, Trump's threatened to slap higher tariffs on Chinese goods worth $200 billion. U.S. officials like Trade Secretary Steven Mnuchin had said earlier that negotiations were progressing well, so Trump's outburst caught investors by surprise. They've responded by dumping stocks. Share prices were worst hit in China, where the Shanghai Composite Index fell by more than 5% and the Shenzhen Composite Index fell nearly 7%. Equity prices are lower in other markets as well, as investors worry over the impact of higher tariffs on global growth.
The German stock market is disappointed. There will probably be more tariffs on both sides, and that is something that export titles, which are traded here in Frankfurt, can definitely do without.
Despite Trump's tweet, 100 Chinese delegates are continuing trade negotiations with their U.S. counterparts in Washington.
We still hope the United States can work hard with China to meet each other halfway and strive to reach a mutually beneficial win-win agreement on the basis of mutual respect. This not only accords with China's interests, but also those of the United States, and is a common expectation of the international community.
But Trump's Twitter threat suggests a resolution to the US-China trade war is not imminent. Mobin Nasir, TRT World.
I think that is going.
Well, let's get more on this now with TRT World's editor-at-large, Craig Copetas, who joins us from Paris. Hi, Craig. So just when we thought the trade war was coming to an end, Donald Trump lobs a grenade in the form of a series of tweets that reportedly infuriated China. Why would Donald Trump risk derailing the progress they've made?
Because President Trump's foreign policy and trade policy is impulsive, improvisational, and designed to service his 35 to 40% domestic base, many of whom believe manufacturing jobs are coming back to the United States and that coal is the energy source of the future. By this point in Trump's administration, it's no secret that the man makes it up as he goes along. So is this yet another example of the death of expertise within his administration? Or is it one of his bully boy threats where Trump announces a deal later this week, and in the wake of the tweet, he looks like a tough guy? 6 of one, half dozen of the other.
Interesting. And before, as Donald Trump was tweeting, Vice Premier Liu He, along with 100 other Chinese officials, were preparing to go to Washington this week in order to resume trade talks, which many had been saying would be the final round of negotiations. Do you think this week of talks, if they do happen, will result in a deal?
I don't believe it's going to result in a deal, Oscar, primarily because there's a lot of other issues still on the table. One of the primary ones, as I see it, is that any deal that the U.S. wants has to can reimpose tariffs if the U.S. believes China is reneging on the deal. Now, that is a unilateral demand by the U.S., and I don't think the Chinese would go along with that. And if it gets too hinky for President Xi of China, you know, he can always choreograph a national backlash against the United States.
Yes, and obviously by Friday, when these talks are expected to end, we still don't know if they'll go ahead, but apparently they are going ahead as planned as we go to where. But if they don't result in a deal by Friday, as you say, do you think Donald Trump will follow through on his threat to raise tariffs and impose new ones?
Well, I suspect that he will. You know, Oscar, if you ship me something, I pay the tariff. You know, so far, Americans have been taxed $200 billion by the tariff so far. Tariffs are taxes, and Americans will pay more. You know, I was talking to some people in the clothing industry earlier today, and they told me that if they raise these tariffs again on clothing to 25%, it would raise the cost for a family of four by $500 a year. That's a lot of money. And that trickles down through a lot of the items that they intend to tax. Again, tariffs are taxes that the consumer pays for. And what Trump is trying to accomplish here, some people believe, is to make it so costly for Americans to do business in China that they're going to come back, and guess what they're going to do? They're going to re-ramp up manufacturing of stuff now made in China in the United States. And that's not going to happen.
No. Okay, we'll see what happens with these talks if they do happen. Craig Copetas in Paris, thank you.